3 shots, 4 par, I just do 2. 1 putt, par 4, birdie, woohoo. New driver, info, replace, M2, par 5, fairway, what you fin do? Think I'll try to get on into, start right, good line, good view, hit Drew, shooter McGavin, 2 thumbs up.
And, we're into episode 190 something here. We might be a couple weeks in the past when we're kind of posting this one out. This might be a couple weeks old because as we have a quick record like we do here, Hunter, and then I pop it out for the following Friday or whatever it is. But I'll be at the Canadian Open this week. So you got any friends playing in the Canadian Open this year?
I had a couple people try to qualify. I'm not sure if they actually got through or not.
Okay.
But I actually have a couple friends that live in Toronto. His name's Michael Blair. I think he might subscribe to your podcast.
Yeah, Michael's been on the pod twice. So we got
Nice.
I've known Michael for years actually. He was on after he won in PEI. So on the PGA
Okay.
Tour Canada, I think that was the COVID year maybe that he won. But yeah, we had a chat like that night. He was kind of a little bit more tired even than you are right now after Sunday dinner. He was kind of like laying there in his bed, hands up, and he had just kind of finished up the tournament, was kind enough to hop on with us. But yeah, Michael's a good friend of the pod. We actually had him on a few weeks ago.
Nice.
Really cool story. It was probably about a month ago now, but really cool story, man. I don't know if you've talked to him recently, but like, Michael is like a hell of a golfer, man. Put on Corn Ferry Tour.
Absolutely.
One of the best golfers in Canada, and like he's doing a full swing teardown. Like he just like is redoing the whole thing, which is wild to hear. That was the first time Bryce, my partner on the
Hmm.
pod here, that was the first time him and I kind of went through something like that. And we were like, this is like an elite golfer, one of the top whatever golfers in the world, and he is just tearing it down because he wants it to be better. Pretty cool story, man. Really
Sure.
cool. Really cool. So he actually, when we're recording this one tomorrow, I'll be doing a podcast with Cam Kellett. So Cam won the qualifier that he won the direct flag into the Canadian Open. So him and I are doing a pod. He's been on before. Tomorrow night, that'll probably get up before this one does. But Michael Blair finished three back. I think Camo went like six deep at a really tough track up here in London, Ontario. Set a course record there, and Michael was, I think, 3 under. So really nice
Nice.
round as well. So as we're having this conversation, he'll be playing tomorrow at TPC Osprey Valley, which will be the host of next year's Canadian Open. They've just
Gotcha.
redone that area, which is really cool. And yeah, so maybe by the time this one gets out, maybe Michael will be in the Canadian Open as well. Fingers crossed, man, because Michael's he's a hell
Yeah,
of a golfer, man. Good friend too.
he
Good friend of the
is.
pod. Really nice guy. So really great guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You got any other buddies up here that we're trying to get in?
I don't know if Blair Bursey tried or not, but he's a really good golfer. He's more towards like Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Um, but other than that, I don't know anybody else that tried to qualify or not.
So I think Blair might have been. There's a chance he might have been in the Oshawa qualifier here. I don't have everything up in front of me, but like we've seen Blair before. If
Hmm.
anybody hasn't seen Blair, you've probably seen a clip of him without knowing. I think Blair was the guy who was like, he got down into his underwear. He played a PGA Tour event. He got down into his underwear and was like 1 or 2 feet in the water, hitting a shot from like the corner of the fairway, or like where the fairway just met the water. I'm pretty sure that's Blair. Hopefully, I got that right, but I'm almost positive. And he had like your typical golfer's tan, was like completely white, like chest to the arms and stuff like that. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Blair. I got to try and find that clip, but I'm almost positive it was. I
Okay.
I was looking the other day and I was trying to see because there were some exemptions, but I don't believe he was one of them. Um, I got it right now in front of me. I'm just looking it up here, but there were so many like other Canadian players that have kind of been in the field before. Blair's been one of them, and I was just kind of wondering if he was one of the guys who got in. Is Will Bateman. That's what I was thinking. And our friend Etienne Papineau is in as well too. So maybe no Blair this year, but you never know because if you got through the way that they do it up here, I'm not sure if you tried to qualify in Canada. So they'll have 3 or 4 host sites. Um, I think it's 4 top players that win. Each of the regional qualifiers get a direct in, and then the top 10 all play in a final kind of like play in essentially, and then the winner there gets in as well, which is pretty cool. So I think yeah, there'll be a lot of good Canadian golfers in there. And
Yeah.
one of the names I didn't see though, and where I'd kind of heard of the Clutch, you're on the Clutch Pro Tour, is that it?
Hmm.
So our friend Craig Stefferak, he was on the pod a little while ago. Do you recognize that name at all? He's a Canadian guy as well.
I'm pretty sure I've seen him around.
Yeah, he's kind of got like kind of like longer hair, sort of down to here now. That was me like a few weeks ago, but yeah, Craig's a hell of a golfer, and he went over there to play. And then he played a couple challenge tour events too, which was really cool. I think he was like in one of the final groupings on the challenge tour. Played a couple DP World Tour events, I think too. So, but he really, really liked that Clutch Tour event a
He's
lot.
good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you know too much about it or no?
No, I would love to hear more about it, but maybe we just got into like the most organic of chats there, kind of talking about Canadian Open because it is that week. So
Yeah.
hopefully it went well. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the tournament. But yeah, we're here with Hunter Howell. Can you give us kind of like a little bit of an intro? That's usually a good way to kind of start the pod if you don't mind, Hunter. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Hunter Howell. I am born and raised pretty much in Franklin, Tennessee, so like just south of Nashville. I went to a small Division I school called Lipscomb University. It's in like the ASUN conference. You have like Kennesaw State, Jacksonville, North Florida, those kind of schools in it. Graduated in 18. Played on the Canadian tour for half a season. I had conditional status.
Okay.
And then COVID hit, so played state opens for a while, and then last year I came over to play on the Clutch Pro Tour, um, which is basically a tour based in like the UK. Um, and there's 17, 18 events, and this year they actually got with like a couple of sponsors. It's been with like Motor Caddy and like Mizuno mainly, but now like they're with those companies along with like a energy drink company,
Okay.
and you actually get world golf ranking points from the events, so which is kind of cool. And then on top of that, like you get challenge tour cards and challenge tour starts, depending on like where you finish in like the order of merit. So it's kind of nice, and it's a different kind of golf than like what you would play like in Canada or the US. So
So
yeah, man.
I definitely want to touch on that point because I've got my kind of opinions on why I think it'd be different golf. But that was one
Hmm.
of the things that Craig mentioned was he kind of compared it to how a lot of North American sports have like, we'll take hockey. That's probably what I'm most familiar with. But
Hmm.
like they have, say, the East Coast League, the American Hockey League, and then the NHL. But like you're having to play well for a year or two. You can get called up here or there. But in golf, like on the North American tours, like you've got to play well for 1 year to get to like the next level, play well that year to get to the next level. You know what I mean? And it can take you a long time to get to the PGA Tour. But he was explaining something like you mentioned there with like getting like different starts and stuff like that into different events. So are you able to like
Hmm.
elaborate on how that works, like on the Clutch Tour at all?
Yeah, so Clutch actually sponsors like a challenge tour event this year.
Okay.
So if you won one of the first 8 events, you automatically get like bumped into like the challenge tour event, which is nice. On top of that, they do an order of merit like throughout like the entire season. So like you get points on like how like you finish in each event. And so like the top three get full challenge tour cards. And then I think four through it's either 5 or 4 through 7, you get 7 guaranteed starts on the challenge tour.
Man, that's
So
sweet.
yeah,
It's just like a
it.
lot faster way to kind of progress, right? Too. So, and then like,
Mhm.
so when you're playing those events too, you're going to get points based on how you finish in the like challenge tour events. Like, is there opportunity to like transfer any of those into like DP World Tour events? Like there are like world rankings and stuff like that. It seems like maybe a bit of a more like an easier transitional from like one tour to the next, I guess, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you kind of like look back at like stories like Brooks Koepka had or Chase Koepka. It's like they came over here and like got on the challenge tour and then did well in a couple events, earned enough points to where like they got on the DP and then now they're on the PGA Tour or Live Tour, for example. So it's just a different way of doing things. And what I liked about it is you're actually playing for other stuff besides money
Okay.
because in the US, mostly like the mini tours are like tours that like a lot of professional golfers play on besides like PGA Tour of like Americas. Um, you're just playing for money, whereas like here you're playing for world golf ranking points. Like I think a guy he went first, second, first in like the first three events, and he jumped from like 4,000 like in the world to now he's like 1,300.
That's sweet, man. And that's like
Yeah.
that's something too. Like it's, you guys must be
Hmm.
playing 4 rounds, I guess, right? So it's
Hmm.
not taking a shot at Live, but those guys are still trying to get their world ranking points, which is kind of, I don't know, that's a whole other conversation. That's a whole other time, really. But
Yeah.
that's cool though, because that'll allow you to probably like in that case where he's playing, he might get a lot of like exemptions and stuff too in other events. And
Exactly.
one of the things that we talked about, like so shortly after we had do you know the name Etienne Papineau? Do you know Paps at all?
I don't think so.
So he's a Canadian guy. He's playing Corn Ferry Tour right now, and
Hmm.
he played in like the Pan Am Games. Like he has been playing like PGA Tour Americas or PGA Tour Canada last year, and I think he finished like third in the order of merit, third or fourth, something like that, playing very well. And then after that, like kind of went on like a hot streak. Like he was like winning everything. Anyway, he went into the Pan Am Games. Like I think he opened with a 62 or a 64. He was the leader after
Nice.
one round. Like some of the names behind him were like Sebastian Munoz, Abe Ancer, Nyman, and like a few other players, like really, really good players, Carlos Ortiz and a couple other players. And like we were kind of
Hmm.
explaining that the ball has to go in the hole. The hole doesn't know who the player is, right? But like there's going to be some guys like at your level that if you're playing your best week in, week out, or this guy who was playing first, second, third, he's going to be one of the best players on the planet in that time. It doesn't matter what course he's playing on or what tour or whatever it is, right? So we really like
Sure.
the idea of, those points are like transferable and you can be rewarded for how well you're playing. Where in the North American game, that can be a little bit sticky. That doesn't always come like right away. And then if you start hot like that, like get a first, second, third, you might kind of dry out for the rest of the year and maybe you fight for a card for whatever tour you're trying to get into. But we're like,
Hmm.
if you went first, second, third on the clutch tour, you're going to get challenge tour starts, maybe you get some DP World Tour starts or something like that, right? So you might
Yeah.
really, really be able to see some like better income as well as like world ranking points, right? So, um,
Hmm.
Hunter, can you kind of like take us back? You're a Tennessee guy. Can you take us back to like some of the junior golf and what that was like there for you?
Yeah, so I played at a lot of TGA events. It's like run basically out of like Middle Tennessee.
Okay.
Um, if you've ever heard of like Vanderbilt Legends Club, is like kind of like the foundation of the TGA, or at least used to be. Um, so did that for a couple of years, did well, and then played in a couple of AJGA events. Did that as like a junior golfer. Played in like the Southern Am, stuff like that. So.
So where did you like when you wrap up junior, where'd you end up going to school? How did that process work for you? You're still a pretty young guy, like you're in your 20s, I'd say.
Yeah, 28.
Okay.
It actually kind of worked out to when I moved up to Tennessee from Florida. Even though I grew up in Tennessee, I moved around a little bit growing up.
Okay.
Um, but when I moved back to Nashville or Franklin, where I'm from, I met like this guy. He was the GM or head pro at Vanderbilt Legends Club, like the golf course that I joined. And then just so happened that he was my swing coach, and then he ended up getting like the head coaching job at Lipscomb for the golf program, and kind of just went like hand in hand. It was a great fit, and also like he was like my swing coach, so
Right.
kind of just made sense.
How
So.
was like college golf? Did you enjoy it? Like we've had a ton of NCAA players. One of Bryce, our partner on the pod, one of his best friends is he was at
Mm.
Morehead State. We're good friends with a good friend of the pod, a good friend of mine, Andy Walker. He's the head coach at VCU, and they're like, man, those guys are flying right now. They were like outside the top 100, I think, a year ago, and they're like inside the top 35 or something right now. They're kind of on fire
Nice.
that school right now. But how was like that college experience for you? Love kind of getting the feedback because we've gotten a lot of the same where it was like a great experience, but we've actually gotten some pretty unique ones where some like guys or gals didn't really enjoy it that much. But what was your take on it?
No. So like for me, like I'm dyslexic, so like the part of like schooling and like trying to like manage everything that went along with college golf, right? Because you have like studies, you have workouts, you have practice, you have tournaments, you have qualifying, and then obviously like girls and all that stuff. So just like managing everything was tough like my freshman year. Um, but by like the time I got to my junior year, like our team was really good. We made it to nationals. We played at Rich Harvest Farms. It was a really cool experience. I mean, played in a bunch of good tournaments, traveled a bunch, um, made like a bunch of friends. My friend Dawson that I played with, he's on the Corn Ferry Tour right now. So he's doing well. But honestly, like as far as like my personal like golf goes, I'm kind of glad that I'm out of college because
Right.
we had a lot of focus practices to where it's like it kind of like was directed towards the entire team and like things that we needed to work on instead of like more individually for me.
Right.
And as soon as I got out of college, like I could work out the way I wanted to. I could practice the way I wanted to. I could like focus more like on like my game, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, because we've heard that a bunch. Like golf's a very individual game, but the college golf game is
Hmm.
very much a team game, right? So it's kind of like it's almost like
Hmm.
live, if you will. It's almost like kind of similar to that. Um,
Sure.
but you need to perform well to get your starts in college, right? It's just like
Yeah.
you need to kind of maximize that to be able to get like, you only got four guys plus your single or whatever it is, however your tournament's set up, but typically five guys going each week, if that sounds right to you.
Hmm.
So, you might we've heard of like some teams having like eight or nine competitive guys, and you got to be able to play to get in, right? So if your stuff's not really geared to you, I can get that that would be a little bit tricky. That'd be
Hmm.
difficult to manage. The college world would be really hard to manage, but um being dyslexic, Hunter, if you don't mind me asking, like, does it affect you in your golf game at all any differently, like when it comes to um hopefully I'm not overstepping with this, but like anything just like
No.
how you approach, because we love getting into the idea of like decade, like how you kind of like build out your plan for each course like that and stuff like that, how you work with your caddy and stuff. Do you find that that gives you any extra challenges that way that you might not typically face, like if you're not dyslexic, or if you're just kind of like able to kind of connect and like read everything without any
Hmm.
hiccups or any of that kind of stuff?
No, for sure. I think it definitely helps me be creative when it comes to golf.
Okay.
Um, and sometimes it affects me like in a positive way, and sometimes it affects me in a negative way because I'll get up to like a shot like around the green, and I'm like, well, I can hit this 20 different ways right now. And it's just trying to like simplify it. And some of my actual best rounds of like when I've had buddies caddy for me, and they're just like, "Hey, take a 56, hit it, chip it to right here, and let it roll out by the hole instead of like flopping it to the hole or hitting like a low skipper or spinner." And it's just for me, like trying to simplify things has helped me instead of trying to look at a shot and be like, "Well, I can hit it this way, this way, this way, this way," or whatever. So,
Yeah, I guess see, I was gonna ask you, like my brain works that way. I was gonna ask you if you have all those 20 different shots, because I do the same thing and I don't have those. I unfortunately don't have those, never have, never will. But um
mhm.
I think part of being a lefty is we're all a little bit creative on my side of the ball. But
Okay.
I think like our friend, like I don't know if you've seen our friend Mac Boucher there. He's from like my area, and Mac and I chat quite a bit, and like he's probably the most creative guy like in the golf space. Obviously, he's just hitting like 50-yard slingers for absolutely no reason at all. But he makes it work, and he does it, and it's kind of art in its own facet. But um do you think that now you've been able to, like, as you approach like pro golf and you kind of like seek out caddies and stuff like that, do you think that that's something that you look for now? Like you look for somebody who can kind of take the reins for you. Like obviously you have the skill, you have the ability, but somebody who can maybe like take the reins and kind of step in a little bit more for you. Do you kind of like that approach where a caddy has a lot more input? Um, we've been lucky enough
Mhm.
to speak with like tons of caddies over the year, and one of them that I remember is Sung Im's caddy a couple years ago. So his kind of approach was that he was very much just there. He gave a number. In that case, they worked with meters, and there wasn't too much. Like he didn't get too involved in that. He didn't get too involved in like the shot process and stuff like that. He wasn't just carrying the bag, obviously, but his name was Billy Spencer, and he like gave a really good, clear way of how him and Sung Jae got together. they met like in the room, they went over the book together, and then
Mhm.
when he got there, they kind of knew before like what club was going to be hit where, and it was a very simple approach. So is that something maybe that you look for in your golf game? Somebody that can kind of like, take the lead for you a little bit?
Yeah, especially like in certain situations, right? Because I mean, when you have like a caddy, they're there to like calm you down, keep you in the present. Because being like a professional golfer, or just golfers in general, everybody thinks that you have to concentrate for, 4 or 5 hours at a time, where it's actually like you're concentrating for 15 seconds while you hit the ball, and then it's
Right.
just like you're turning it off and like walking to the next shot, talk about anything. Sometimes like it's even best to not even talk about golf in between shots because it's like you're trying to get your mind to just go somewhere else and then come back.
Yeah,
So
like
having, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like having someone there to like understand like how you work, and then for me like simplifying like shots, whether that's like how we went through like during the practice round or like on the yardage book, just going through it. Just keeping it simple is works best for me.
I love that, man, and I think naturally, so whenever I've caddied, like I've got a couple buddies who play PGA Tour America, so when they're in this stop, usually I'll join them and I'll carry the bag for somebody, and that's always sort of naturally just been my approach is to just be like really kind of calm with them and almost like a distraction point. We're always kind of like joking, keeping it light. Like we're end up talking about something else. Like I've talked about this on the pod a couple times. Like one of our last rounds when we knew we weren't making the cut, like it was like dominated by talking about chicken wing spots in the area and stuff like that. It was just like so random, but getting kind of the mind off of like golf specifically all the time is probably pretty important in between the two shot, like in between each shot that you're hitting, right? Or else like
Sure.
I don't know. I feel like that could drive you a little bit crazy, right? It definitely could.
It's emotionally and physically and mentally draining, right? I mean, because
Yeah.
I learned last year that there's a reason why people don't win every single week, like on the PGA Tour or just in general. It's very hard to do, to like win and then back it up with another win.
Yeah, and like we've seen that happen this year almost more than ever. Like we talked about the two, this is a debatable topic, but Scotty and Nelly were kind of they're starting the year approaching like some of the best years in the history of the game. I think it was 2003 or 2004, Curry Webb and obviously Tiger Woods. Like they had
Hmm.
Tiger had like 11 wins or something that year. I think it was 11 or 12. I think he even had like a DP World Tour win or something, which was wild. Curry had 9, I believe. Like, do you think there's anything that goes into that where like we see a guy like Scotty right now be able to kind of do what he's doing? Obviously, things have sort of changed. He's as we're having this conversation, it's Sunday of they're at Colonial right now, and he's I think 4 back of Davis Riley, but he's in the hunt every week. Like, is there something like from your opinion as a pro golfer that you see that like maybe he brings or that obviously inevitably like in the past that Tiger brought that we talk about that mental game that like other players maybe didn't have that level that he did?
I would definitely say, as far as mental game, Scotty is like top tier, kind of like I would say along with Tiger.
Yeah,
I mean, if you look at Scotty, like he doesn't really use social media. Like he, is religious, so like he kind of like stays like within himself. He never gets too like big headed about like anything that he does. Um, and so I think having like the base and foundation that he has like led him to be as consistent as he is, along with like obviously his golf game. He's a great player, best in the world. So yeah, I mean I would say the attitude that he has, like the people that like he surrounds himself with, and the fact that like whether he like plays good or plays bad, and by his standards, it doesn't change his life.
right. He said that before too, and obviously like Ted Scott's a very religious guy as well, and like those two seem to be obviously like kind of like Stevie and Tiger Woods back in the heyday, right? Like
Sure.
they're like inseparable almost, and they're probably very aligned in a lot of their thoughts, as we saw like during the PGA Championship. Ted Scott wasn't there for round 3. Um, and you kind of see that it was Scotty's first round over par in like 40 rounds or something, which is an insane stat. Like that's a
Saying,
wild stat. Um,
yeah.
but thinking about things like that and like what maybe takes players to the next level, it's those types of things. Like Tiger had,
Hmm.
even Phil said it, like everybody feels like they're going to play for second, like when they're playing against Tiger Woods. He's won in 24% of his tournaments or something like that, which is wild over a PGA Tour career. That's
Yeah.
obviously come down a little bit now, but trying to get to that mental space is something I think we'd all like in our game at a, to a different level. Like I would like to be able to focus a lot more. Like one of the things that a friend of mine and I are starting to do is like even just in our games, like we talk out a lot more shots. We can't always deliver those shots. Excuse me, we don't always have the ability to, but like talking them out definitely does help. It
Hmm.
helps kind of planning those shots out and knowing like our misses and things like that. It's our own like little decade philosophy, really. We play the same course pretty much every day when we play. So um I think it does kind of help, but is there something like in your game right now that you're kind of like working on to sort of, you know, if you're playing Clutch Tour now, obviously you want to get more of those Challenge Tour starts. You want to try and get like more DP World Tour starts, and inevitably, like I assume you probably want to come back to North America and be able to play, Corn Ferry or PGA Tour eventually, right? Like that's the ultimate goal. So is there stuff that you're working on to try and bring your game to that next level?
Yeah, I mean, just the consistency. As far as like my game as recently, I haven't played like to the level that I wanted to. I mean, this winter, I went through like a phase of like trying to chase distance, right? Because it's like, the closer you are to the hole, like, the farther you hit it, like the easier like the next shot is. But the thing is when I was chasing distance, I went from like hitting a fade off the tee to a
Right.
draw. And, a draw is great, like if the course is wide open, but like the course is really tight, especially like over here. And so like I've been struggling off the tee. So just going back to like my fade has definitely helped. So it's just like the consistency and um the I don't know, focus
Well,
that I can have during like the round to execute it.
that's kinda like what I said too, knowing your miss, right? So, like, I'm having a hard time in my game right now, like, knowing my miss off of the tee only, like, so,
Hmm.
I have a lot more, like, confidence really when I have a wedge in my hand or, um, like, any iron. Very much so, like, I roll it really well, but I do not have a ton of confidence off the tee right now. I don't have a miss that I know, right? So, I assume
Hmm.
if you're kinda transitioning to, like, a longer game, you're trying to play, like, a tight draw or something like that, and you're like missing, you wouldn't know your miss quite as well. And that's like part of consistency, right? And if you're playing
Right.
like, if you're playing a 5 yard fade or whatever it is, like, okay, like if you miss it, it's only going to be like a couple more yards this way or whatever it may be, but that's your miss. You kind of know it, where you're going to be set up for your next shot. And also like depending on how the courses play out and stuff like that, you said they're pretty tight there, right? So
Hmm.
when we started off the pod, Hunter, you mentioned like the game is played a little bit differently there. Can you kind of elaborate on that one for us a little bit?
Yeah. So for example, like in America, you have um, longer courses, but they're mostly for like the majority part like wide open, and you have like really fast greens. Some of them are pretty soft, some are firm. But like you have these huge like pieces of land that have golf courses on them. Whereas like over here, like a lot of courses you don't have driving ranges, so like you hit into a net or you don't even hit balls. Um, the courses are super tight because they're like 100 years old or sometimes even older. Um, the greens are bumpy. Like the green speeds that I've played on recently, I mean, they've been, I think the fastest I've played on is a 9.5. So like you have to like pop the ball when you putt it. You can't just stroke it. It's
Right.
like you ever play on area to greens?
Yeah. So I was thinking about something right as you were saying that because I went through like almost like a little putting yip at the start of last year because of that. The course I was playing at
Hmm.
regularly, actually, it might have been 2 or 3 years ago now, but the course I was playing at regularly punched a little bit at a different time, and it was right at the start of when we started playing, and I noticed that, like, you do have to kinda, like, get the ball rolling on, like, a forward trajectory versus, like, being able to have, like, your smooth plane or whatever it is. There's always a bit of an upward descent when you're putting, but, um
Mhm.
Yeah, like it definitely changed things and it created like a pretty good yip for me too. So just even knowing that about the different courses would be difficult too to add into your game, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the course that we played, it happened to be like the opposite course that I won on last year. So it was Frilford Heath Red. It's in Oxford, England,
Okay.
and the rough was you had like I don't know 3 4 feet of like semi rough, like on either side of the fairway. The fairways are like between 20 yards wide and 35 yards wide, so not very big. But like if you miss like the first cut of like the rough, I mean it was 12 inches long. Like you're losing your ball.
I'd be toast. My game would just be done right now. Um,
So
like it's just I just like I'm kind of back to like the point where I don't really have that miss off the tee. Like I'm like left, I'm right, I'm starting to play like iron off the tee a little bit more. I do play at a very old course. It's like the second or third oldest course in Canada, which is great. It's cool, but
mhm.
yeah, I got a lot of misses in the game right now, Hunter. I got a lot of misses right now, man, and it's a tough spot. But is that something that you're like constantly trying to work through? Like, are you trying to like are you like when you go through your pre-round like prep, are you kind of like treating all these courses like as brand new? Like I assume like I don't know how long you've been overseas, but are you playing them a lot of times for the first time?
So yeah, so last year when I came over, I only came over for 2.5 months and only pretty much played like a third of the season.
Okay.
And I came over at like the end of June, early July. So the courses that I've been playing so far, like I've never seen before.
Right.
And um, the conditions like aren't like what I'm used to in Florida, where when I left Florida, it was 95 degrees Fahrenheit, like
Yeah.
super sunny, like the ball like was going forever. Whereas like over here, like it's 45 degrees usually, uh, like misting rain, and blowing like 20 miles an hour.
That's a different game, man. That's a whole different
It is.
game. But we got a win over
So
there. I saw that you got a win over there. Can we kind of talk about that one a little bit? When did that one take place? Kind of how did everything come together for that one?
yeah, so I'd been playing good all summer. I just couldn't get it to where I lined up like 3 really good rounds in a row. And ironically, like we had like the last event right before like we went off to Q school for the DP World Tour.
Right.
Um, and so we went and played this course called Frilford Heath Blue, and it's in Oxford, England as well. It's the opposite of the one we played a couple weeks ago. And the first round I shot 73, one over par, was in like 83rd place. Like I was like, I don't know, I can't get any putts to drop, and I use an arm lock, so it just feels more consistent to me as far as like putting goes. And I realized I had like more of like an arc rather than like straight back, straight through with it.
Okay.
And second round, I shot 64 bogey free, chipped in for eagle like on the second to last hole, like one of those like special rounds to where it's like I just turned off everything and it was just really good. And ironically, like the guy that I'm staying with over this full season with in Nottingham, which is where I'm based out of, he actually played with me during the event and got to watch it, so it's pretty cool. But back to the tournament, so I shot 73, 64, and then fired like the last round with the 66, and it was disappointing because on the 17th hole, I had a like a long putt for birdie on a par five, and ended up three putting and bogeying it. And I thought I just gave away the tournament because I jumped from 83rd place to 12th place, and then wasn't like running for like the win. And I managed to get into like a playoff, a 3-for-1 playoff, like sudden death. So we went to number 10, which is a real tight hole, and I had hit 3 iron in previously, like in like the rounds, and I was like, well, I got nothing to lose. Worst case scenario, I come in third place, so I just had to hit driver. I hit it, and all of a sudden, I just see it just peel to the right. I'm like, oh no, because there's gorge bushes over there to the right. So I get up to my ball, and there's a gorge bush on like the left side of my ball. Well, I'm right-handed, so I'm like, well, do I take an unplayable or do I try to hit a lefty? So I ended up flipping the club around, chopped it out left-handed to 74 yards, hit a wedge shot to 4 feet, made it for par.
Damn, that's pretty
So
good, man. That's pretty good. And the other two guys made bogey?
so one guy three putted, he made
Ooh,
bogey, and then one guy made par. So we went to the next hole, which was 18, the next playoff hole.
okay.
Again, I hit like iron off the tee, like in the tournament, and I was like, "Whoa, one guy's already out. Of course, I'm gonna get it second, so I'm gonna try to win." And so I blast driver around the fairway, and then hit like a wedge on the green, and the other guy makes bogey, and I two putt for the win.
Love
So
that, man. Love that. Like,
yeah,
is that kind of always like, is that your MO, or are you just like kind of all gas? You got to go for it. Like, if that opportunity's there, you always gonna go for it?
absolutely. I mean, it's funny to say because like um, I um, am playing golf for like a living, but at the same time, it's like I'm playing golf for a living, so it's like nothing really bad can happen. I mean, the worst case scenario is I hit the ball again. So as far as like, being scared or you know, worrying about like the outcome, I just pick a target and hit it and hope it goes there. So
That's such a good
yeah,
outlook, man. That is such an
yeah,
incredible outlook. Like, that's one of the coolest like stories. Man, we're 190 something episodes, and that's like one of the coolest stories I've thought that I've heard. I thought like I definitely thought you were gonna tell me like, I knew you had won, so I already knew what the answer was, but I kind of thought that you were gonna tell me like, oh, it didn't like happen, didn't come together, and you're like, yeah, so I just pulled driver on the second playoff hole anyway, because it can't get any worse than second place. There's already one guy gone. I love that, man. That's so cool. That's such a like
yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of refreshing too because I feel like there's so many players like that just you know, they just will kind of play on the more conservative side, right? And maybe you don't win because of that, right? We've heard that so many times. Like it's the difference
Hmm.
between like when you're playing a lot of these mini tours, it's almost like playing a qualifier every single event, right? Or every single round, right? Like you have to go deep in all of them. Like so many guys have kind of said that it's you're playing like you're at Q school and you're taking every chance that you can get, every opportunity that you can get because you need to, because everybody's doing the same. And
Hmm.
I kind of like that approach. That would definitely be my approach. I don't know if it worked for me like it did work for you, but I'm happy it did, man. That's really cool. Um,
Yeah,
so do you still got a few minutes? Can we kind of talk about what you got before we wrap up? I've had you about 45 minutes. You good for a few more minutes?
absolutely. Yeah. I had an alarm on my phone, so we're good. It was for something else, but
Just kind of
yeah.
wanted to see like, yeah, how the schedule is going like the rest of the year, kind of what your plans are, where you're going to be.
Yeah, so next week we're at a course called Forest Pines. It's about an hour northeast of Nottingham, which is where I'm based out of.
Okay.
So like just like the northeast side of like England.
Okay.
So yeah, and then after that we go back down to Oxford. I'm not sure where Manor House is. Somewhere in England. But yeah, and then in a couple weeks we go to Slaley Hall, which is Newcastle. So it's at like the very top part of England. So it's very different than like what you typically like expect for when people typically think of like England, they think of London
Yeah.
and Slaley Hall, Newcastle. It's like rolling hills, farms everywhere, goats, all that kind of stuff.
Are the courses like much different than they would be in like southern England as well? Like, because you said like where you are now, it's like, sub 50 degrees. It's cool. It's rainy kind of stuff. Like, is it a lot different weather up north too?
Yeah. So like the further like north you go, like the colder, like and um, the windier and hillier the golf courses are typically.
Right. Right.
If you go to like the west side, which is like where like Liverpool is, where they had the Open last year,
Yeah.
kind of like where like Wales is, you have like more of like the link style courses. So you have different terrain depending on like where you play. Mostly like in like the middle part of like the country, you have like tree lined courses to where it's like you got to hit between trees and like it's like weaved in and out of like patches of land. You have farms everywhere. So
Right. Now, I
yeah.
guess it's just like man, it kind of seems like it'd be like a different approach each week, really. I'm thinking of like the golf game here and like you've got your typical like Stanley Thompson kind of like parkland style courses, and then maybe you have something that's like a little bit more open or something. But there it seems like it would be very different. The course I play over here is it's Port Hope. It's like right on the water. It's kinda like you're talking, like, there's a lot of, like, hills on it, there's fescue on the left, the right, and it's kinda like it's got a little bit of, like, an old character, so every round I play is very different, the wind is very different, there's always wind, it's always going in a different direction, so it's kinda neat, it keeps it fresh, but it sounds like that's almost your tournament life, man, like, every week's a little bit different, it seems like.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know, like, do you ever use a compass when you play?
I don't, no.
So you definitely should. So do you have an iPhone, or anything like that?
I do, yeah, I do.
So if you go to the compass app, and like look at like where like the weather's coming in or where the wind's coming before that, if you click on like the compass app, it'll turn red.
Okay,
So like click in like the middle,
okay, yeah.
and then turn your phone. See how like it went red.
Yeah,
So like you can like be like, oh, the wind's coming from like the north. So like you click like where it says like north, put it like in the right direction, and then you turn your phone, and then you'll know exactly where the wind's coming from.
that's awesome, man. That's
Hmm.
something new that I've never heard of doing. I'm gonna
Yeah.
try because, like, at our course, like, again, right on the water, there's always wind. We're into, like, a headwind, and then it seems like it's always kinda changing, like, lately, it's been a headwind through, like, the first, um, kinda like 4 holes that we play all kinda go out one way, but then when we seem to come back, it almost seems like we're, like, kinda back into it a little bit. It'd be nice to know exactly how that's going. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Love that. That's good
Always look at
news.
yeah, always look at the weather and like where the wind is, depending on like what time it's going to change. And people typically say it's like for every mile an hour, like a wind, it's 3 yards.
Yeah.
It's roughly like around like the same. So like if it's like blowing 20, I try to play like 25, for example.
Okay.
Um, I always hit like flighted shots. So going back to like me keeping golf simple, it's like I have a full shot typically, and then I have like a flighted shot.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
think, like, do you so because there you'd have to be playing, like, a lot of different shots in your game, like, a lot of them would be kind of a flighted shot. Is that something that you had to, like, work on as you kinda went over? Is that something that you, like, brought from North America? Were you working on that before you, like, when you're playing college golf and stuff? Did you always sort of have that in your game?
No, I definitely had to work on that. So I caddied for my friend John Summers. He's a PGA professional. I caddied for him in the PGA Championship last year, and he's always been like a good ball striker, and he kind of got together with me as like I was working like with him, and um, he's been a great ball striker. So he showed me like his trick, and he goes, "Yeah, I have a full shot, and I have like a back-footed shot that comes out a little flighted. Basically, comes out like at like either like a half a club or a club shorter than like what the actual club is."
Okay.
And I was like, that kind of keeps it simple for me. So it's like, say I have 175 yards, and I need to hit it like a little flighted. I'll like back foot a 7 iron, so it comes out a little lower and doesn't get hit by the wind.
That's so cool, man. I love that. And you caddied
Yeah.
at the PGA Championship, was that right?
Okay.
How was that experience? Like, I've caddied a couple times, like PGA Tour Canada pretty much or PGA Tour Americas and whatnot, but it's something
hmm
that, you know, tomorrow we're gonna be talking with Cam, who's playing in the Canadian Open, and his brother's caddying for him too, and he's gonna hop on with us, which will be a pretty cool experience. But how was that for you at Oak Hill?
Nice. It was really good. I actually got to play, or not play, but be in the same practice round group as Michael Block.
Okay, yeah.
So I got to meet him, talk to him, and he's a really cool guy. I was really glad to see that he played well during the PGA last year. Um, but I mean, people don't really understand like how, I don't know, undulated golf courses are sometimes like if they're watching it on TV, whether you've been to
Right.
like the Masters or like Oak Hill, for example. The rough there like was brutal. I mean, talk about like thick, sticky rough. If you hit it in the rough, like you weren't probably going to advance it more than 120 yards. Um, Greens were perfect, but in spots like if you were above the hole, like good luck.
Yeah.
So,
So, like, what did you bring? It was John Summers, you said, right? So, like, what did you
mhm.
bring? What did you bring for him? Like, were you guys like talking a lot of those shots through? Did he kind of have experience at Oak Hill? Like, did he know? Like, had he played the course? Like, did he know kind of how he wanted to approach it, or were you guys like, did you guys get into it and really like build a game plan for the week?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that. So, him and I like play like a lot of golf together because he's the head pro at Southern Hills Plantation Club in Brooksville, Florida, where I play at. And he played on Corn Ferry for a couple of years, like a really good player. And prepping to go to like the PGA Championship last year, we actually got the PGA like 2K game because they had the PGA Championship course on there. And so like we made like each like our own player and like played like the golf courses and saw like a little bit of the break, and it was kind of like a cool aspect of like prepping for the tournament because you
Yeah.
had like the exact yardages, you had um not the same pins but like very like similar pins, and you would just be like, all right, well, when we get up to this hole, if the wind's blowing this direction, we want to miss it here because then we'll have more green to work with or whatever. So it was fun.
So your guys' prep was a video game. That's sweet, man. I've
Yeah.
never heard that before. I've never heard the Compass Hunter. That's so good, man. I love that. It's such like a nice, like easy approach too to kind of like just learn different aspects of the game that you might not, or the course that you might not be able to see, right? So I
Mhm.
imagine you'd only get so many practice rounds too ahead of time to kind of like really prep for that. But that's a cool approach. I love that, man. That's really cool. That's a really like nice, nice, easy approach. And the compass is definitely something I'll use. But hopefully I didn't keep you too long, man. I know we ran about an hour here, but hopefully that wasn't
Oh,
too long. I'd love to do it again, man. This was such a good chat. This was really cool.
absolutely, man. Yeah, anytime,
I think
anytime.
I think maybe we grab you at the end of the season. We kind of see if you can rack up a couple more wins, and then we definitely love to have you back. We'll get Brycer in it for the next one.
Perfect. Yeah, I'd love to come back.
All right, thanks, Hunter. Thanks so much, man.
All right,
Perfect, man.
sounds good. Thanks.
I'll click save on that one. I really appreciate it.
He's out in my ball in the course, so I tee up. I lose the ball and I re-up. I miss a fairway, I probably end up in the ocean or maybe the beach. And I'm on a par 5 and I'm finna go reach it. Second was blind, I ain't see it. Feel like it might be an albatross, worst case scenario.